Plan. This is part of the public comment period, where if you like, you can go online and leave a direct comment at TucsonUSD.com. You can send a letter to the P.O. box that's listed on the website and on the cards outside. You can send it in, or you can write your comment outside on the comment cards in English or in Spanish. Today, tomorrow, and Wednesday is the opportunity for the public to come out and leave your comment for the special master and for the parties to hear. The parties will then take those comments back and consider them, and whether to revise the proposed plan as it stands now. And then the final plan will be submitted on December 10th to the federal court, and the federal court will, at that point, it will be in the federal court's hands on what to do with the plan, whether to adopt it in whole, in part, etc. So I welcome everyone again to Tucson High. We have comment cards, and this will be facilitated by the Department of Justice. So I'm going to introduce Ron Wakabayashi, who will be facilitating the event this evening. Also, just wanted one quick comment. Someone told me, make sure please everyone turn off your cell phones, and please be respectful of all the commenters. Thank you.
I don't know if you caught his name, that's Sam Brown with the TUSD Deseg coordinator. He's not going to get to. Let me ask the panel first, the listening panel, to introduce themselves. But before I do that, just explain that what Sam just repeated is that this process tonight is for the parties who've been involved in developing the plan and the special masters to listen. So. This is not a forum in the sense of that there's a dialogue back and forth. That's not their role. The time is really dedicated to the audience, for those who wish to speak, to make their comments to the listening panel. But I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and who they represent.
And I'm one of the lawyers from the Department of Justice. Nice to see all of you.
I'm Anarima Vargava. I'm also with the Department of Justice.
I'm Heather Daines with the law firm of DeConcini McDonald Yetwin Lacy, representing the district.
I'm Ruben Salter, representing the Fisher plaintiffs.
My name is Nancy Ramirez. I'm an attorney with MALDEF, Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, representing Mendoza plaintiffs.
And my name is Willis Hawley. I'm a special master.
Okay, so that's your listening panel. Sam pointed out that there are cards to be filled out that identify what you want to address and in specific. And I think I would urge that when you have your opportunity, that you just start off with, this is what I want to address, and and get into your comments. The structure of this is that there 3 minutes set aside for each person to comment. And we're asking people to be considerate of each other in the sense that if someone runs over, it makes someone else later. But it's not to be rigid either. If there's a need for more comment, there are computers set up in the back where you can have written comments either by computer or in writing. If there's more time later on, we can even bring you back. But if you can stay to that 3 minute focus on your presentation. We're going to help you do that. I have two of the staff from Community Relations Service, and I want to differentiate. We are with the Department of Justice, and it's no, the comments are not to say that the Civil Rights Division is not a sister agency. They certainly are. But we are, with Community Relations Service, we're a completely separate agency. We're created by the Civil Rights Act, Title 10, and our role is to be involved with conflict resolution and mediation. So we have a separate role here from the folks on at the table. I have two of my colleagues with me, so on the timekeeping, we're going to have Marquez hold up some signs just to help you through it. And I know for most of us, the 3 minute thing is hard. Like, it takes a lot of training to say something in 3 minutes, or even when you get a 1 minute, you don't know how much you can say. This is just a guide to help you. So Marcus is going to try to, hold up the signs and help, guide you through the time, and you should start wrapping up. If it gets really out of hand, James Williams III, James, stand up. James will walk towards you. Just to give a second reminder, but he's really very gentle. James will be introducing or calling in the speakers. We have 3 chairs held here. So if you're called, we'll ask you to come up and take those seats so that you kind of come up right away. Any questions? Other ground rules is like like the basic ground rules are really that we want to be considerate, respectful, focus on topic. And from what I've seen in the Tucson community, that's not hard for you folks. Are pretty outstanding in that way. So James, you want to introduce yourself?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? All right, magnificent. What we'd like to do is to have, as Ron said earlier, we're going to bring 4 people up, including the first speaker. The first speaker is Miguel Ortega. I'd also like to have come down Cristina Partida, Salvador Galvadon, and Jana Hapo. And your seats will be right here. So you're here.
Special Master panelists, good evening. My name is Miguel Ortega. Before I get started, I just want to thank you for the atmosphere for this meeting. It is like night and day, and I hope that TUSD will continue having meetings like these where they're open, where it's inviting, and where the community is welcome. So thank you for that. I'm a parent and I've been here in Tucson for about 30 years. I have deep roots in the Sonoran region. My parents are from Sonora. My father was a migrant farm worker. He was a bracero. My wife is 2nd generation Tucsonan, 3rd generation Arizonan, and she's a graduate from Tucson High School here. And her father, my father-in-law, is also a graduate from Tucson High. So they're badges. There's a lot of badges in our family. I'm also a property owner, and I live on the west side of Tucson, near Manzo and Bricta, and a lot of other schools that we love there. I served 5 years on the Mexican American Studies Advisory Board, and so the first thing I want to say is I want to talk about things that are unprecedented. But before that, I want to make it very clear that I support the Declaration of Intellectual Warriors document, and you will hear more about that. There's very key components there. And I think the community itself, if you need any document to really kind of get a sense of what we support, that's the document to look at. Youth work really hard on that, you have community input, and there's a couple of elements in that that I really support. Obviously, the reinstatement of the Mexican American Studies program is extremely important to me and my family. And we also feel that the courses must be core, they must not be electives. Those are 2 things that I really feel strongly about, and that English as an ELL, there should be changes for that program, and we shouldn't have them separated for 4 hours from the rest of the students. So that it speaks to that. Okay, so what's unprecedented? There's been unprecedented open meeting violations, unprecedented censorship. We've had books banned. We've had TUSD staff coming in, taking books out of classrooms while the students are there watching. We have not been allowed to use signs when historically we put political signs at school meetings. Unprecedented censorship. Double bookings at meetings. Tomorrow, TUSD is holding a meeting on closures at the same time that there is an important Deseg meeting taking place on the south side. How did that happen? That's a continuing problem with TUSD. There's a disconnect with the community. We have had arrests of community leaders, and we've had terrible national representation. And we've had terrible treatment of Chicano youth. Consider this. The Mexican American Studies program was the last to come to TUSD and the first to be kicked out. I think that's very telling of how we've been treated in this community. So I offer unprecedented solutions. First of all, we must look at governance, okay? Why is it that our school board members are elected at large and not by district and by ward? Pima College does that, and I think we need to look at that. And I know I'm out of time. The final thing I'd like to say, we need to have some administrative reform. This is the last thing I'll say. It is just wrong that TUSD attorneys represent the bureaucracy and not TUSD families. That needs to be reformed. The attorneys must be held accountable, and they should represent the school board. They should be hired by the school board, evaluated by the school board, and if needed, terminated by the school board. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Christina Partida, and I'm here from the office of Congressman Grijalva, and I do have a message from him. Special Master Hawley, TUSD school board members, and esteemed members of the community, it is a pleasure to be here with you today. Due to his responsibilities in Congress, Representative Grijalva is unable to join us here today. He asked that I attend today's public hearing on his behalf and sends the following message. I commend you, Special Master Hawley, the official plaintiffs, the Mendoza plaintiffs, Tucson Unified School District, and the U.S. Department of Justice for taking significant steps to bring Fisher et al., Mendoza et al. Versus TUSD to successful conclusion. The proposed plan outlines clear and necessary steps that strengthen educational opportunities for all TUSD students, and I write today to express my hope that it will be implemented. Southern Arizona's communities of color worked hard for many decades to make sure their children receive the same quality of public education as their white peers. The fight cannot be allowed to end in vain. Political opportunism by certain elected and appointed officials ended MAS despite its obvious benefits and its power to close the achievement gap for Latino students. The University of Arizona researchers recently published an empirical analysis of the effects of Mexican American studies participation on student achievement within Tucson Unified School District. A landmark paper you requested that found a consistent, significant positive relationship between MAS participation and student academic performance. These successes, which would have been impossible without the MAS curriculum, can and should be repeated. I therefore strongly support creating a culturally relevant education plan and establishing a CRPI coordinator through the Unitary Status Plan. Although the title of director is preferred as it would signify status of position of function. Furthermore, the plan offers TUSD a unique opportunity to ensure that students with diverse needs, including English language learners, are better identified, better educated, and given the best chance of graduating college and are career ready. It is imperative that the provision mandating TUSD to develop a district-wide professional development plan for all educators working on ELL students be maintained in the final plan. This provision should not ignore bilingual dual language acquisition as an option and outcome. The demography of TUSD continues to diversify, and there is much work to be done to ensure that TUSD provides equal opportunities to each of its students. At this moment, the best and perhaps the only way to make that happen is through a court order that mandates the inclusion of a culturally relevant curriculum, the creation of a CRPI coordinator, and creation of a district-wide professional development plan for all educators working with ELL students. I am a former TUSD board member, and I have seen firsthand the difficulty of overcoming persistent poverty, discrimination, and institutional neglect. This is a rare chance to institute badly needed reforms and begin to put right decades of injustices. I thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed Unitary Status Plan, and I look forward to some meaningful improvements in the Southern Arizona education system. I submit Representative Grijalva's complete comments for the record. Thank you for your time.
Buenas noches, bienvenidos. I am Salvador Gabaldon. I work for the district. in the Language Acquisition Department, I want to address an issue related to Section 5, the quality of instruction. And there are 2 points in that quality of instruction that relate to English language learners that I hope you will take into account. First of all, you created a thing called advanced learning experiences. And you identified certain components that qualify as advanced learning experiences. That included things like international baccalaureate classes, the GATE program, university high school classes, and one other aspect. But what you did not include, and which I found puzzling, you did not include as an advanced learning experience students participating in dual language classes. I can't think of a more advanced learning experience than to ask students to learn mathematics and science and social studies in 2 different languages. That's a hugely challenging task for students. The students that participate in dual language classes are students from all ethnic groups, and I hope that you will consider including dual language classes in your definition of advanced learning experiences. The second item deals with the issue of 4 hours of segregation. And I'm hoping that you will acknowledge that the OALA's option you created in the plan fits within the existing alternatives that the state of Arizona has provided. If you allow us to design that OALA's option, as I hope you will do, and I'm going to submit a sample of a model that I hope you will do, we should not need permission from the state of Arizona to do it. So I ask that you allow us, under your authority, to design that OALA's class. Thank you very much.
Now come down to the speaker area, Barbara Reed Kreider, Roberto Rodriguez, and Richard Orozco.
Good evening. My name is Janet Howell. I'm the parent of 2 Chicano students at Tucson High. My children also went through 9 years of dual language instruction at TUSD, and I endorse everything that Mr. Gabaldon just said. Dr. Hawley, you commissioned the latest and most in-depth study of the MAS program, the Cabrera Report, which I have right here. And it shows that MAS was wildly successful with the mostly low-income Hispanic students who had already failed the Ames test and were at risk for dropping out. A real superintendent whose district produced these types of results would stand on the rooftop and tell the world what we've accomplished here. To the parties, we all know that Dr. Petticone and the TUSD governing board are trying to hide the Cabrera Report. I went to your website. The Cabrera Report is nowhere to be found. Then I looked at the plan that you posted on your website. There is no data attached to it. I looked at the version of the plan that you filed with the court, and there are many appendices with data attached to the plan. How do you expect the public to evaluate the plan without the data? And I do notice that you have printouts today. Thank you very much. Please put the Cabrera Report and the data on your website. Even in the complete document that you submitted to the court, the Cabrera Report is not included in the data, and nowhere in your plan or in any of the appendices is there any mention of this report? It's as if it never existed. And did you eliminate the data because you think we're too stupid to understand it? I don't think so. I think you left it out because you knew if the public saw your plan with all of the data and saw that the Cabrera report was conspicuously absent, that it would be obvious to everyone that something here stinks like a rotting fish. Dr. Petticone and the board do not want the people to read the Cabrera report because it will cause more people to support MAS. So they're doing everything they can to keep the Cabrera report out of the public eye, off of the Tucson USP website, and invisible in the court filings. Unless the Fisher plaintiffs, the US, and the Mendoza plaintiffs act to include the Cabrera report, you too will be complicit with TUSD. This Cabrera report is not just filled with data, it is filled with people. These are real live human beings who have beat the odds. But even armed with the results of the Cabrera report, our TUSD governing board has disgraced itself by objecting to MAS classes and have shown us that they don't care about the kids in this report. To the three parties, I urge you to create two separate departments of culturally relevant studies for African American and Mexican American students with a director, not a coordinator. In light of TUSD's duplicity, the plan must include qualifications for the new MAS director that are high enough to continue the work started by the MAS staff. It is unacceptable to bring in novice, director, and teachers, and this is the standard in the Cabrera report that we will hold the new program to. Thank you.
And I just got off an airplane, being away a week, so I'm not very prepared. But I served from 1978 to 1996 on the monitoring committee that was formed at the beginning of the original stipulation, and then I was back on the committee in 2005. I would like to address two issues tonight, and I may come to the meeting tomorrow night after I've read more of the document. The first issue deals with a phrase that is highlighted on page 11 of the document. And it is, to the extent practicable. This phrase has been objected to by the Fisher plaintiffs as to the generality of the language. I object to the phrase, period. It follows a pattern used by the district to inoculate itself or themselves or certain people, areas, schools, etc., from change that is not wanted by them. I recall a close to 250-page submission to the court from, I believe, the mid-1980s that contained the word may instead of what would have been expected to be a will, which allowed all students from the Tucson Country Club Estates area to choose their own destination for junior high and high school. I can't remember either the date of the document anymore, but I think I could come up with it if you give me a week to search for it. This phrase is like that. The phrase changes or allows a change. It allows the district to do whatever it wants to do with whatever topic is they're addressing or don't want to do. Okay, I've got 1 minute left. Gifted education is another area where I think the district falls quite short. If people get their children in kindergarten, they can keep them there all the way through to their senior year in high school. And too many English language learners, children of color, etc., don't qualify in the kindergarten years for a variety of reasons. In addition, a lot of them are funneled off to special education. I have a suggestion of perhaps a guidance committee being set up to monitor an investigation of Gate and University High. And I have two names to suggest to you. Neither of these people I have talked to yet. So, one is Elaine Tuttle Hansen, who resigned as the head of Bates College in Maine and is now working at Johns Hopkins, doing things with attracting and identifying gifted children. The other is Carlos Gonzalez, who's a doctor who went through here and went to Carleton College, came back, got a medical degree, and against all odds, and is working down in Patagonia. I don't know. I can find out for you. Sorry, I'll have to come back tomorrow night for the rest of it.
Before I begin, I just want to say that everyone's been asking for dialogue, not monologues, so I just want you to know it. Cuando Wally, Dr. Hawley, le want to toca Roberto, Dr. Cindy Rodriguez. I'm a professor at the University of Arizona, and I'm here primarily to support the youth document that was put together by our entire community, the Intellectual Warriors document. Welcome to Tucson, to Tlamanalco, the place where offerings are left. There's been a lot of talk in this country about an impending fiscal cliff. If we're going to use metaphors tonight, here in Tucson, we're facing a moral cliff. Today, the issue before us is segregation, yet it's the end of 2012 and we are still talking about segregation, disparate funding, unequal school, substandard education for the majority, and a conscious attempt by the state and by TUSD to destroy that which works for our students, the district's highly successful MAS department. The most pressing issue on its face appears to be one driven by the region's demographics. It only appears that way because both the state and TUSD and the school board have been operating in an apartheid manner. That is but another term for segregation, except that it is applied when the minority attempts to impose its will on the majority. Statewide, we know that students of color are now the majority in public schools, especially in the lower grades, and in Tucson specifically, we know that the percentages are even higher. The politics of apartheid reigns supreme here in this godforsaken desert. But let me reiterate, the issues before us are not about demographics, but about what is moral. The proposed desegregation plan deals with a number of issues as it should, but let me limit it to the issue of MAS and ethnic studies, because it's been nothing short of immoral. The proposed plan appears to affirm the success of Raza studies, yet, yes, that's what it used to be called before the state forced administrators to capitulate and call it something palatable to bureaucrats. And then the state, then TUSD proceeded to dismantle it, decapitate it, destroy it. And incidentally, every scientific study affirms its success. Throughout all this time, the state has always been clear, via Tom Horn and Mr. Ruben, that the state would destroy MAS. But the TUSD board and the superintendent, under the guise that they wanted to improve MAS, not only facilitated the destruction of MAS, but then created a multicultural initiative in its place, which is very disingenuous. As you know, TUSD has objected to the draft proposal of the desegregation plan, and they did this with Godspeed on November 9th, the same day of the plan's court fighting. In their objections, first they say that there are no vestiges of segregation at TUSD, and that even if there were, that their multicultural initiative is the solution. Anyway, the state and TUSD colluded to destroy the nation's leading program and department, one which had proven beyond a reasonable doubt that it is a successful academic program. Then they give us an untried model and essentially tell you and tell us, the parents and the children of the district, to go away and to simply trust them. This is highly disturbing. Since 1978, hundreds of millions of desegregation dollars have flowed from the federal government to make things right here in Tucson. The money appears to have gone to everything but desegregation. This time we have a chance to ensure that desegregation funds go to restoring MAS, solidifying it, and expanding it as the draft essentially advocates to every high school within the district. Once this is in place, and I have a small document, I find it very insulting that you're corralling our community, but I'll be as respectful as I can. I just want to finish reading this. You know, this time we have a chance to ensure that desegregation funds go to restoring MAS. I said that. Once this is in place, the district can move on to create the multicultural initiative. If desegregation funds are used properly, the district's budget crisis notwithstanding, there should be no impediment to getting on with the business of restoring MAS TUSD. I'll finish this statement either tomorrow or the following day, and I just want to let you know I'm a member of about 5 national organizations of scholars, National Chicano Studies, National Association of Ethnic Scholars, Arizona Scholars Network, and all of them support that document that the students will present. Thank you.
We have Cam Juarez, Monica Robeson, and Richard Martinez come down to the speaker seat, please.
Buenas noches. Good evening. My name is Rick Orozco. I'm Assistant Professor of Education at Oregon State University. I'm a native Tucsonan and a product of Tucson Unified School District. Estimados consules, Dr. Howley, Dr. Pettercombe, those in the audience here tonight. Come before you in support of the Post-Unitary Status Plan as written by Special Master Hawley. I'll keep my comments brief, but specifically I call attention to sections 5C6A1 and 5C6A2 concerning the implementation of multicultural curriculum and culturally relevant core courses that reflect history, experiences, and culture of African American and Latino students, otherwise stated as ethnic studies. Allow me to offer several citations to validate Dr. Hawley's recommendations. I do so in an effort to put into context the persistent findings that are part of Dr. Hawley's recommendations. As early as 1970, literature appeared that addressed the need to implement ethnic studies in K-12 schools. Distinguished multicultural educator Geneva Gay in 1970 called for the need to put into action a systemic, profound approach to schooling of non-white students. In a word, she chides schools for merely adding to existing curriculums marginalized and stereotypical information about non-whites that, quote, distorted, ignored, and omitted authenticity. Gay further wrote, quote, the need for a high quality of education for minority students is so crucial that ethnic studies should receive top priority in any consideration of educational needs and curriculum innovations. In 1975, this was followed up by James Banks, himself an equally distinguished scholar, when he cautioned the assumptions that accompany ethnic studies that negatively affect the way that ethnic studies is developed include such ideas as assumptions as the results such an assumption results in the lack of ethnic studies in segregated white schools. In other words, if these assumptions are held, we will only see ethnic studies in segregated white schools and only as electives in those that are predominantly non-white. Later in 1979, when the desegregation case here in Tucson was in its infancy, Dr. Patricia Brown marked the need to include ethnic experiences in the curriculum. So in other words, the suggestion is that indeed standalone ethnic studies courses should be developed and maintained. Within the context of TUSD's curriculum, such measures are vital. As part of research that I've undertaken, I've recently concluded analyses of the district's U.S. history curriculum that mirrors very closely that of the state standards. In the curriculum, there's a profound absence of the history and experiences of non-whites in the U.S. And allow me to put a small piece of this manuscript to exemplify my point, and I'll do this in conclusion. By counting the number of people appearing in the United States history curriculum, the group that is central to study can be determined. Results of this count reveal a total of 49 names. 45 or 92% are white, and 4 or 8% are black. No person from any other ethnic racial group is represented in the USH curriculum. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Monica Robinson, and my children are products of TUSD. Particularly, we've dealt with African American Studies Department, and that's what I would like to speak about this evening. It's a department that has been very influential in helping African American students as well as other diverse ethnicities within TUSD. And I would ask that this program would not go away, that there will be more services available to students, African American students as well as students of other ethnicities. I currently have a junior high school student that will be entering high school next year, and it has just been essential for her to have this direction and support from African American studies that we've used ongoing. And I do have a graduate of Tucson High School that is also a product of the department. I've sat on advisory boards, and it's just really important that we keep those measures within the school system, and that the students have this outreach, they have the support, and I would appreciate if you all would not, that these services would not go away, because it's essential for not only the kids, but also the parents and the community. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley, counsel. My name is Richard Martinez, as you know. And a couple points I'd like to make to you. One is, democracy is not exercised in 3 minutes. It's unfortunate that you place that limitation in this form. Number 2 is, you have exercised or participated in creating a document that is the product of the lowest common denominator. I will tell you that creating a product that is the result of the lowest common denominator among them does nothing to solve the problems of Latino, Black, and Native American students in this district. You have reduced yourselves to the point of not having even the courage to identify when you intend to say Mexican American studies or Raza studies, you give us a euphemism. A euphemism that, depending on who the board majority is, can be interpreted in any way they want because of exercising this lowest common denominator. You know, we're all the product of a country that started with a very flawed document. This, too, is a flawed document. If you were to put yourselves back a couple hundred years and say, would you be the authors and sign on to a document that embraced or perpetuated slavery? Would you be the signing on to a document that excluded